Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I wonder if Zuckerberg is going to let us do it.
We're live. We're live. The day after tax day, we've survived. We've written our checks, and the U.S. government has decided to sell Bitcoin.
How
Maybe.
strategic.
Do we know that's what
How
happened?
I mean, look, I don't think we don't really know. I don't think we ever really know like exactly what's happening. I think that it was talked about. There was stuff put out into the world on various channels. I don't want to get too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole here, but I think it was made known that the government, because there's some rule that says if they're going to do something, they have to tell everybody first, and I guess that's good. So it's not entirely shocking. Or there's a couple of reasons I think we're seeing a slight correction or a slight pullback here in the Bitcoin price. Is one, it's after tax day, and two, we've seen Bitcoin run almost 80 some percent, 90, is it 80% now from the year to date performance. I saw a link yesterday to an article, just a headline. I'm not playing the headline follow game here, but I'm just saying that I caught a glimpse of a headline that said that Bitcoin is the best performing asset of 2023, which you don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, all you have to do in order to understand that is be able to fog a mirror and look at a chart from January 1 to April 18th, and it would have made sense to you. And then you look at the performance of every other asset year to date, and barring any information I don't have access to or didn't bother to look up, that still applies today. It's the best performing asset this year. And so, but back to this, the federal government made an announcement. They're going to sell 40,000 Bitcoin that they confiscated as a part of, whatever it was, Silk Road or something to that, something where they came into possession of illicit funds, and they now, because it's part of it's written somewhere. There's some rule that says that they have to confiscate that things that they confiscate they have to sell, and they're now in the process of doing that. Probably, the question is, where does such a large quantity of Bitcoin come from in such a short period of time? It's a likely candidate. It could be that people, market participants, mostly people, maybe some trading algorithms, have been waiting for a price to appreciate rather steeply. And it has. We talked about this yesterday, that we're probably going to see some profit taking as we get into this $30,000, $32,000, $34,000 range as we hit that 100% performance mark or 100% appreciation mark for the year. How many other stocks, bonds, precious metals have gone up in price 100% so far in this quarter and a quarter and a quarter and a time? So it could be government selling, and I may sneeze while I'm doing this, by the way. So it could be the government selling. It could be just some really heavy hitting short sellers that are trying to take advantage of the fact that prices moved over 30,000 and then struggled a little bit to keep going because volume, maybe there wasn't enough volume. And as you get further down the rabbit hole in your trading journey, you learn to look at things like the RSI and even a few other advanced topics about how much leverage is currently being used, or what's called short interest, meaning how many people are interested in being short an asset. And there's convergence that can align, or things that can converge that can make the price go up, and things that can make the price come back down. But I think the most important part about what we've seen overnight here is that price pulled back to about the 29,000-ish level, which is where we had this pretty stiff resistance prior. And it seems to have flipped that level into a support level because enough buying came in at that 29,000-ish, some a little bit below, and has propped it back up. Now we'll see. We got to see what happens. There's probably some headline FUD that's been teed up and made readily available for any sort of strategic positioning initiatives by people in government to use whatever they can, anytime they can, to further their own agenda. So the Elizabeth Warrens of the world are just salivating and chomping at the bit to try and talk this thing back down. And any number of things, any number of other participants in the political apparatus that have something to lose as more and more people wake up, like yesterday for me, helping another normie get onboarded and send money between two parties without a bank getting involved, having their hand out on the one side of the transaction and having their hand out on the other, under the guise of we're providing you a safe and secure service, when two consenting parties can now use the internet to swap value like that. So that's take my tinfoil hat back off now, and we could talk a little bit more about what happened yesterday with Gensler getting roasted in front of Congress, and what does it really matter? I have an opinion on that.
Yeah, look, if you've been around Bitcoin and crypto for a while, we're down 3% today. This stuff happens. I mean, we ran up, and everybody. It's amazing to me when you've gone through some of these cycles and you get new entrants, and you run up basically 100%, and you pull back 3%, and everybody freaks out, and it's like, I remember when I first started doing this, and I don't know that we'll ever see this again, but in 2016 and 2017, I mean, there would be days, we would, in 2017, it was the clearest buy the dip I've ever seen, because it would come back 20, 30% regularly, and you would say, great, this is awesome, I could buy more, right? Like it was very clear, and I think we're getting to that point where, we'll see what happens here, but any dip could be looked at favorably, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, right? There's a lot of indicators and a lot of metrics that I'm aware of that allow me to say that, but this stuff it's par for the course, and I think you're right. I think we're gonna probably get ready to see some headline stuff and more FUD come out. It's interesting, the government, when they sell this stuff, if it was the government, what was the number, like 16,000 Bitcoin or something like that, some large amount of Bitcoin.
In this particular instance, think of the one of the charts that I caught a glimpse of. It looked like the supply that was made available to be sold and was sold very quickly was 16,000 Bitcoin. And what probably happened is there were so market price was in that 30,000-ish, maybe sub 30-ish, whatever. And underneath that price, there were probably a substantial amount there's two types of participants. There are people that are positioned short, meaning or they have orders to sell short if the price came back down below the market. There are the other type of order is a buy order if the price pulls back to a certain level. And what probably happened is, as more and more supply was made available, more these different order types were getting filled, but during that particular period of time, there was just more supply available than there were buy orders, for example. And it just, the price is like electricity, like electricity. It follows the path of least resistance. So if there was more selling pressure available, on tap, or not on tap, present is the word I'm looking for. Sorry, more selling pressure present during a particular period, the price is going to follow the path of least resistance. But your interesting point, I sent you an Andrew Kang tweet that talks about that'll support what I'm talking about here. It said that markets don't go up in a straight line, and I think it's so ironic and it seems silly, but people need to hear this. Is markets don't go up in a straight line, and if they did, then no one would be interested. And we have to, ironically enough, or unironically enough, depending on where you're sitting, is that we need people to get short. If we're bullish this asset, Bitcoin, and we think it's going to continue to go up, then what we need in some cases is for people to try and sell some of it and try to push the price lower, so that when it comes back a little bit, and then it invites a bunch of other late entrants to the short selling game in that particular instance. They sell what they think is going to be a continuation lower, but what happens is they, because you can't see all the participants, but when you're in an uptrend, the trend is the saying is the trend is your friend. All I'm trying to communicate is that I wouldn't be net short anything right now, given all of the other conditions. And what I think may happen, this is just my one opinion, is that I think a statistically significant number of participants chase this short, a lot of retail. And then what's going to happen? It's going to get crowded. There's going to be a lot of people short, and then some big heavy buying is going to come in, and that's going to trigger a bunch of liquidations to the upside, and people panic closing their shorts, and it's just going to send it through to another level and go into price discovery mode, where as you break through or break out, people are going to be taking new positions, either long or short, and you'll see potentially, unless some incredible stream of FUD has been ready to be uncorked, that's going to cause people to be concerned in the short term and then go net short, and then that's where the market's going to go. It's going to pull back. But I'll argue that it's not really a great risk reward from my perspective to be piling in short here after this asset has moved nearly 100% and is now the best performing asset of 2023. That said, there probably going to be some profit taking. There probably be some more volatility shows up as people start to, with our like very narrow perspectives as human beings. Sometimes people, and I know this from experience, so I'm not trying to sound disparaging. I know from being a wet behind the ears noob, looking at price action, feeling the feelings of, oh crap, this is a reversal, and it's not a reversal most of the time. It's a correction where people that were interested in buying are waiting for an opportunity for price to come back down. And it's no different than going to the store, looking at a t-shirt like a t-shirt on the rack that's $20, and you come back the next day, it's been marked up to $25. You're like, I'm not paying $25 for that $20 t-shirt. I'm gonna wait till it goes on sale. And then what happens? The store's like, oh crap, I got all these t-shirts. We can't sell them. They're at $25. Let's mark them back down to 20. Some people are like, hallelujah, it went on sale. And they come back and they buy the $20 t-shirt that they weren't interested in before because it went up to $25 and now it's been marked back down. And then you've got other participants in the market in that example that say, well, the $20 t-shirt's been marked down from 25 back to 20. I'm going to wait for it to go on sale. And let's say that the store is like, well, we got to move this inventory. It's been sitting here too long. So let's mark it down 50%. So we'll mark it down from $20 to $10. If this was a stock, people would panic. And if they owned it, they would sell it. Instead, what in the t-shirt example, people will be like, oh yeah, well, since they're 50% off, I'll buy two. And the example, I'll finish up with this, is that there's some really smart person was quoted back in the old days, said that the stock market in the US was the only place where when the merchandise went on sale, people ran for the exits. So I just think if you're fundamentally bullish and you have a time horizon that's more than, say, 2 minutes or 5 days, you're looking at opportunities to enter a long position on correction or pullbacks like this. And I'll just say it pulled back to 29,000. And if you look in the chart, it couldn't get above 29,000. And now we had a strong move forward, slight correction, slightly larger correction, 29,000. I'll argue that there was a lot of buy pressure parked at that level to absorb this selling that we're seeing. So that's my armchair market participant analysis for today.
Yeah, I mean, this is one entity selling, a large amount, right? This is, and could be the government, could be something else, but here we've got Ivan on Tech. He's a great follow. I found him when I first started, and he's one of those guys. A lot of these guys you get burnt out on over time, but I think he does a good job. And within crypto Twitter and YouTube crypto, or I don't even know, I think we have a name for it, but he he's actually pretty good. But he says the U.S. government dumping their Bitcoin. He says my target is 28 to 28 and a half. And by the way, something else too, with all this, when you follow all these people, I mean, literally, it's 50-50. Some people say the world's ending. Some people say that we're going up forever. You have to have your own thesis, and then adjust accordingly. But Ivan on Tech is a good follow. He gets into a lot more altcoins. He's got a great YouTube show. He does a really nice job. But if you're new to this, he's somebody you can check out. But I think we can move on to what happened yesterday with Gensler. And here we have a tweet from Warren Davidson. I'm calling to restructure the SEC and remove Chair Gensler. This is this statement. I didn't watch this in full yesterday. I just watched all the various YouTube clips, or I'm sorry, on Twitter, I guess. And it seemed like he got an earful. Let's just say it that way. Here's Justin Slaughter. Chair Gensler just testified that he taught multiple courses on crypto, but has never owned or used it. How can you teach a course about something you've never owned or used? And then you have Fubar on Twitter. Is ETH a security? Doesn't answer. Is ETH a security? Doesn't answer. Is ETH a security? Doesn't answer. Have you given sufficient clarity? Yes. And then it says physically painful to watch this obscene level of lying. And, that's something that was interesting about watching Gensler yesterday squirm and spleen. I mean, this guy is, he's coming out with enforcement actions against crypto, and he's sitting there acting like and basically lying about his actions, and it really makes you wonder, what's really going on here, and it's you can see him now, the guy, he just looks like a little weasel, not to be judging on somebody, but look at his body, look at it, the way he moves, like he's not comfortable. He doesn't project confidence. Like, this is the government. These are the people that are, and look at that hand motion. He just, he's just I don't want to say it because I'm not trying to judge somebody based off their looks, but whenever you watch somebody, you can tell if they're lying or not. And it was very apparent that he was lying in a bunch of these cases. And it's amazing to me that this happens at this level. I guess it shouldn't be, but it is.
The question in my mind is, where was the SEC and Gensler, more importantly, when FTX was nearing its collapse? And why weren't they blowing the whistle? I saw a tweet from someone yesterday that said it wasn't the SEC and Gensler at all that brought FTX down. It was the market. The market brought FTX down, and it wasn't the watchdogs that we are told that we can trust, like the FDIC, the SEC, and the FTC, and the FCC, and the blah, 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 all the other acronyms that are just whatever. That's a whole nother can of worms. But the point I'm trying to illustrate is it wasn't these clowns that were protecting consumers. And they watched as someone who was friends of a friend of a friend, meaning scam, bankster, fraud, facilitating this incredible money laundering and funds stealing operation to go finance their joyride in the Bahamas. And it is, like, again, I'll say it again, people are a species with amnesia. Where's all the outrage from? Whatever. All I'm trying to say here is that if Gensler gave a crap about American consumers, then he wouldn't be attacking. So here, FTX was offshore, out from under the reach of the long arm of federal regulation. Okay, they were driven there because they had bad intention, and they knew that if they tried to do this crap on U.S. soil, they would have gotten nowhere. So very ironically, they moved offshore. Now you have SEC going after Kraken, going after Coinbase, going after whoever else, not approving a spot Bitcoin ETF, but it's okay for futures to be traded because Anyway, the point is that they're attacking entities that domiciled in the U.S. on U.S. soil. They followed all of the regulation and rules that are made available. And this horse pucky about the regulatory stuff is clear is bull, because where if it was available and it was clear, I'll argue that Kraken and Coinbase, especially because they're publicly traded, they have everything to lose if they don't follow the rules. Everything. And I think it's fantastic. As much as I don't want Armstrong and Coinbase to move outside the U.S., because that would be stupid and awful for consumers. I think it was right of him to stand up and publicly state, if all the options are on the table. If the federal government won't give us a clear path to becoming fully compliant, fully regulated, and doing all of these things that we need to do, which we've been trying to do, then we'll pack our crap and leave. And I think that's where it's that to me is one of the underlying threads that has created enough friction and strife for the senators or the Congress peoples that wrote the legislation and are basically saying, get this clown out of here, because your walk doesn't or your walk is not matching your talk. You haven't protected anybody. You're only making it more difficult, and you're going to cause the flight to off U.S. shores is, if it's not already happening. I mean, you gotta think, by the time somebody like Brian Armstrong, who's the CEO of a publicly traded company that does billions in revenue and has thousands of people and thousands of other people breathing down their neck. I mean, thousands of employees to manage, a business to manage, investors to please, and then they've got government regulators, the FBI, the SEC, all breathing down their neck for various things, that they haven't been thinking about this as a contingency for some time. So that's the other thing that kind of woke me up at a very deep level yesterday, was that, man, if these clowns in DC don't get their crap together, they're going to have a much bigger problem when people like me are going to find ways to do business with Coinbase if they leave the U.S., because I trust them and they've always done right. And I don't care what anybody says, any of the retail clowns in the world that can't read basic instructions about how to ACH cash into their account and how to use a two-factor token, they don't matter, because they're bottom feeders. What I'm talking about is the people that are serious about changing the system and innovating and using new technology to make our lives better. And all these clowns like Gensler playing politics. And the worst part about Gensler yesterday, the worst soundbite was him referencing that when I quote, when I was at Goldman Sachs, like, I don't give a flying rat's butt.
Well, and
like,
how many times has he said, he went to MIT, like, at some point MIT is going to be like, hey, listen, bro, like, you got to stop saying that, like, you're now a liability. And I just look at all this from the perspective of, and you have to take this with a grain of salt because I have a bias, based off what I've seen. But, like, look at this administration and look at the corruption happening right now. And this is the guy that they picked to handle this, right? And so, Gensler wants to act like he's for the working guy, and he's not. I think he made $100 million at Goldman Sachs, and his buddies are clearly, at the big banks, right? And we go back to this idea that what they're trying to do is buy time for the big banks to act, right, and get their shit lined up, right? And so all these actions that they're taking, they don't have approval from Congress. There's no framework from Congress for Gensler to go out and make these enforcement actions, right? He's just doing it on his own. And you have to think about what's the agenda here, because unfortunately they're not going to come out and just tell you. It's very clear now that they're anti-crypto, and they can get up there and say, I'm trying to protect the consumer, but you haven't. You've actually hurt the consumer in multiple ways. Not approving a spot Bitcoin ETF is insane. They're approved in multiple other countries. Why the U.S.? We should be a financial leader, not slowed down by these people. Like, it's very frustrating to watch, right? And despite all this, it doesn't change anything about the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Doesn't change, how these protocols operate. This is just noise, and you have to pay attention to it because, the United States is still a huge powerhouse, right? But it seems like if they continue down this path, they're going to push us in a direction where we fall behind the rest of the world. I mean, this stuff is happening. It's going to continue to happen, and you're not going to be able to just blindly make rules and force it to stop, right? Like, you have more and more people that are adopting this stuff, and the use cases for it become clearer every day, and there was another clip, he tried to blame the SVB and Signature Bank failures on crypto, and that's a flat out lie. Like, these people, I mean, that in itself should show that he's not competent. If he really thinks that, then he doesn't know what's going on, right? He's either lying or incompetent, and he's probably both, right? Like, this stuff, what I'm thankful for is you had a lot of congressmen push back really, really hard on him, and it's very clear that he is no ally of crypto and no ally of the American people. I mean, and that's the big thing, right? As a U.S. citizen, you've got these people that are in charge that are every single day working against your best interest. Like, it's absurd. It just needs to stop. And, we'll see what happens with all this stuff. I saw a tweet yesterday. The guy was like, the worst part of all of this is nothing will happen. And that was like, and I don't want to believe that, but how this guy has that much power. I mean, they're literally trying to cage, a 3,000-pound gorilla in a cat cage. Like, it's not going to work, but they're going to slow it down. They're going to throw all kinds of FUD in the media. They're going to come after everybody, like, without warrant. Like, it just blindly attacked the whole industry. So I saw this tweet too that I want to talk about. And Ryan Selkis, I think he's the founder of Messerai, which is it's a great platform for crypto research. He basically said, I'm helping spearhead a $100 million multi-entity pro-crypto political campaign over the next 18 months, putting my time, energy, and money where my mouth is. So, he live tweeted this all day yesterday. So if you want to check out his account, it's 2-Bit Idiot at Ryan Selkis. And he's been very, very aggressive, which is what you want to see from the industry, right? Because what's happening is, we're getting full on attacked. And so I think this is a great effort, right? I think that I'm happy to see this because I do think you will see, congressmen and congresswomen that understand this and get it and understand what's happening with Gensler is not good for the interest of, average U.S. citizens.
I think an interesting thing, I'm really thankful for that Ryan Selkis tweet, by the way, because the thing that the people in Congress understand one language, and that's money.
Yeah, no,
and when they see what needs to happen, so right now the big banks lobby, the big banking lobby, and other big lobbies, they have the biggest checkbooks, and Congress is like electricity. They follow the path of least resistance to where the money is. Okay, so if you like in the crime dramas that you watch on TV, what do they do? The one savvy detective's like, well, it's easy, mates. We just follow the money. And somebody else is like, well, no, we need to look at the other clues. And anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is that I think it's high time. Like, I'm willing to put some of my own money, maybe my own crypto, if I need to, behind something like this to demonstrate that I'm literally voting with my actual wallet and my crypto wallet. Because at the end of the day, as consumers and as constituents of a voting mass and citizen, we vote with our wallets across the whole spectrum when we choose one product over another, one vendor over another, and when we when we support one political candidate, literally voting. But that's the real vote, is with your wallet, quite frankly. So what I'm hoping happens here is that this wakes a few of these sleepy-headed politicians up, because they they don't work for a living in the classical sense. They're not participating in the labor pool like you or I, or some, like the real working man and woman in the world. And there are only two genders, by the way. They're not participating in the labor pool in the sense that they're trading their time for the dollars. They're at a different level. Yes, they're earning a salary as a participant in our government, but they also rely on campaign, or they rely on contributions from their donors. So there was a good clip of Trump and Hillary Clinton when she asked him if he took advantage of some tax deduction and wrote off something like 900 million. He said, "Of course I did." And he very astutely pointed out is that, yes, I did, and we could have changed this law but when you were a senator, Hillary Clinton, you didn't change the law because your donors were taking advantage of the same thing, the same tax. Your wealthy donors, meaning at the level of wealth that the Trumpster operates at. And it was a slap. It was a good slap in the face for that one moment, and it's good to reference because it just reminds you that the thing that greases, in business is saying, Mark Cuban says this, is that sales cures all. And in politics, money paves the way and greases the skids for things. And perhaps until us normies get banded together in the same way that the big banking lobby is very well organized and very well capitalized, if we need to organize and capitalize ourselves, we have the tools, we have the technology. We don't have to be a bank. We don't have to be a lobby like a traditional lobby. We can literally send money to each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at the speed of light if we needed to. But we can already do these things today. So I guess perhaps what I'm encouraging to happen here is that people start voting with their wallets, their crypto wallets, and telling the government, which, by the way, the government works for the people, not the other way around. And in some cases, you get what you vote for. And if you want to see, you can vote at the polls, but you can vote with your wallet, is what I'm trying to communicate there. And that's the thing that stuck out to me from Selkis's tweet about putting together. And last thought on this is that you get in front of your congresspeople and say, look, money, I know how important money is to making this system work. And we've organized, and we're ready to put some real capital firepower to work to try and make changes. As difficult as it is going to be to change, the thing that's going to get the attention of the legislators is capital, and that's just real life, in my opinion.
Well, and the allure of crypto is, you want to. The current system hasn't worked for a lot of people, and you're looking for an escape path, right? An exit from the system. And, they are going to try as hard as they can to prevent people from doing that. And that's going to be through FUD. There's going to be through these coordinated media attacks, right? And by the way, if you're seeing all this, they don't just do this with crypto, right? They have, all these networks have agendas. They're all owned by the same three companies, right? Like they all have, again, like it's very easy. Whatever they're saying on TV, do the opposite, or think the opposite. Like it's not aligned in your best interest most of the time, right? And I'm not claiming to know what everyone's best interest is, but I'm saying in general, at the American public, right? Like, this has become very evident over the past 3 years. And so now we're in a position where, we were optimistic a year ago. And I remember when, Biden got elected and all these crypto people were like, this is great for crypto. And I was like, it is not great for crypto. This is terrible. This guy is a criminal. He's corrupt. They're going to do everything they can to, hurt this industry. And it turns out that was the correct thought. And so,
get what you vote for.
Yeah, well, and it's not necessarily a Democrat or Republican thing. It's just this guy is a world-class, criminal. And, you don't need to take my word for it. I think all that information is coming out now, right? And so that's what we're up against. And I'm very happy to see that there are people, and look, as somebody who's in the industry, I don't have as much pull as a Ryan Selkis. So I'm very happy to see somebody with a platform and the ability to coordinate people do this. And like you, I'll help any way I can. And I think, what we're doing is we're trying to slowly over time, build an audience and help people get into crypto. And I think that's what we're doing, right? Like we're trying to help people understand why this might be a good idea for them to pay attention to, and possibly allocate a percentage of your labor efforts or your savings into this, because this is the future. The idea that, I just did taxes, and the brokerage firm we deal with, it took them a week to wire the money. They were supposed to have it by tax day. It's not going to hit till today. And it's like, this is absurd. I've spent the last 6 years moving money whenever I wanted to, and I've got to talk to 5 people, and they don't do what they're going to say, or they don't say what they're going to do, and they don't do what they're going to say. And it's unbelievably frustrating when you're sitting here operating in a manner with your own finances that you can move money whenever you want. All this stuff becomes so mundane. It's like looking at one of those old rotary phones in the age of the cell phone. It's like, why would I use this thing? I don't have to use this thing anymore, and that's the same with a lot of these systems that are in place. And the government, that's a whole other story, right? Like, it's irrelevant, right? Like they're going to change. We're going through some rough times now. We've got a very aggressive SEC chair. I hope that he gets fired. I really do, because this is but the problem is, sometimes they say the devil, right? It's like the mayor of Chicago. She was terrible. Then they got another guy in there and he's worse. So
Yep.
You gotta
So
be careful
it's a
what you-
real possibility that you got to, like, to your point, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. So if we're all over here on this side of the fence or this side of the table, and we're like pounding the table, Gensler gone, I would argue that's probably a good idea for some of us to think about, like, who needs to take their place. And it's not just about trying to put somebody that, like, a few of us think is the best for what we want. You don't have to look at there were a lot of people got burned by FTX and several others, the Lunas and the Celsiuses and all these others that the SEC was supposed to be protecting us from. And just look at last year. Look at all the bad actors that, like, went up in flames and took a lot of people with them, a lot of their money with them too. And ironically enough, I guess not enough people on Wall Street got lit, or burnt, I should say, by these things. And I don't know what it's going to take, but I guess the thing that I guess was really encouraging, perhaps, even though how many of us sit around and think about all the times that Elizabeth Warren grilled the pants off of somebody like a Jamie Dimon? Does anybody remember that? I do. And maybe I'm, like, mildly on the spectrum, and, like, I'm, like, autistic. I don't know. Maybe I am. But the point I'm trying to get to here is that I remember those things, and I watch this stuff, and I'm like, in 3 weeks from now, there's going to be somebody else in the hot seat on some new hot button issue, and that frustrates me a little bit, because Elizabeth Warren dragged Jamie Dimon across the fire and through the coals, and reamed his butt senseless in front of cameras. And there were a handful of people that shook their fists and were like, that jerk, he deserves it. And then what happened? Nothing. He went right back.
They had a record profit.
And all it's done for them is put them in the spotlight and remind everyone that JP Morgan Chase exists. And people's curiosity gets the best of them, and they're like, well, maybe I'll go to that bank. And then, some people, ironically enough, perhaps they look at anything that Elizabeth Warren doesn't like, and they're like, I'll take 2 of those, please. Thank you. So I'm hoping, here's a twist, is that as frustrating and stupid as the things that the Elizabeth Warrens of the world say, and the stupid crap that comes out of the Genslers' mouths, the mouths of the Genslers of the world, all I can think of now is that Warren especially, like the last few months of this, Bitcoin has gone up almost 100% during this time. And I wonder if they don't take these positions on purpose because they actually, behind the scenes, and I know this from lived in this world for like 15 years, working in DC and all of the back alley crap that goes on. Say one thing, do another. All the people that voted for Trump when he got elected, but when they came out to the exit polls, they said, "Oh yeah, definitely voted for Hillary," because they don't want to be seen to do that. They care about they're worried about their reputation. They're worried about being ostracized in their offices and businesses, and they're afraid of scaring off customers. Anyway, I think Elizabeth Warren's done a great job now that I've had some time to think about it and get over being mad at her. Is perhaps this is intentional. She's trying to actually facilitate the change, but in her circle and in the world where she lives in, she has to be seen to operate a certain way. And this is all politicians. You
Yeah,
know,
that's a silly game that I don't understand. I don't
I hate
like.
it.
I don't operate that way. I don't think most people do. Uh, what I think about when I see this is, nothing is by accident, like this kind of stuff. They've got coordinated events that are coming up the pipeline. I don't know what they are, but I can't imagine they're positive for crypto. And then whatever narrative they're going to choose, it's going to be crypto bad. Crypto caused this. Crypto did this. Crypto, and it's going to be false, and it's going to be complete horseshit. But that's what they're going to pump out. And what you got to remember is, it's irrelevant to crypto. These protocols operate, agnostically. They don't
That's right.
care. These people can't change the rules as much as they try within the crypto world. So what can they do? They can drive U.S. companies offshore. And as an American citizen, why would we want that at all? Why would we want any U.S. company to be driven offshore? I don't think you do, right? Like that's the whole point. And so whether you like crypto or not, you got to take the position that, look, okay, if they can drive crypto companies offshore, can they drive my company offshore? Say all of a sudden they decide they don't like plastic PVC piping, and they're going to drive, the plumbing supply companies off. Like it could be anything, whatever. It could be literally anything they choose that they don't like, that they think is against their agenda. And so whenever you hear, protecting democracy, what they're talking about is protecting their own fiefdom. They're not talking about you and I's freedoms. Like, it's like that old meme. I don't think the words you use are the same things that I think they mean, right? Like like I don't think that word means the same thing to both of us. So like protecting democracy is slang for, or they're going to say, it's a national security threat and create some Patriot Act 2.0 bill like the Restrict Act to come in and completely take over this stuff. And I think that's where we have to stand up and to circle back to this tweet. I mean, we have to do this stuff. So,
Yep.
whatever any of us can do to help, I think we're all on board. But, these hearings that it happen, I mean, again, I'd rather be talking about crypto, right? And I'd rather be talking about different projects in crypto and stuff that I think is interesting and learning how to better our own lives. But when this stuff happens, you got to pay attention to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then just to kind of like put a bow on all this, in my opinion, all of this nonsense, this dog and pony show that we saw yesterday, should be a wake up call for us normies to start voting, not just at the polls, but with our wallets, and more importantly, with our crypto wallets. So if you care about this stuff, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. If you really care, find a way to get involved. Find a way to make your local government, your senator, your congressperson, make them aware that you exist and that you vote with not just you not only vote at the polls, but you vote with your wallet. And in a roundabout way, that signals that, hey, you work for us. This government is intended to work for the people, not the other way around. So
Yeah,
vote with your wallet. Yeah.
I wrote my senator, and he got back to me 2 weeks later with a detailed letter. I mean, I was excited to see that, and it was, it was pro crypto, so I was excited to see that. And they've got nuances they've got to deal with, but I think if enough of us do that, they will get the message, right? And so I think it is important, as much as we kind of think, well, I don't matter, or I just have $500 in Bitcoin, or I'm not a big enough player. That's not true. If every single one of us made our voices heard, it would have an impact. And I think this is the hill, that this isn't just about crypto. This is about financial freedom as a U.S. citizen. Because what's coming down the pipeline, and this has been dramatically over sensationalized based on the reality today, but these CBDCs that they are working on and they would love to implement are on it is the end game for these people that want to control your life. And so there's a difference between a central bank digital currency and a decentralized, open, permissionless network like Bitcoin. And we have to understand the difference. We have to let our senators know we understand the difference, and we have to help educate them on the difference, because it's the difference between living, the American dream, which I contend now is not the American dream. It's the world dream. There's people all over the world that want to have a life free, that they can work, save their money, and raise their family, and have their governments leave them alone. With a CBDC, that world doesn't exist. And so this stuff is extremely important, not only from just a crypto standpoint, but just a freedom and human, like a human standpoint. I don't think I want the AI overlord program by Greta Sudstrom about climate change to dictate where I spend my money, right? Like, it's all this stuff is getting so crazy, but you just have to separate the noise from the signal, and understand the difference between the two, and why it is important.
That's right. So where do we go from here? I think we go like as participants in the space, we shake our fist, and there's multitudes of ways there's many ways to do that. And what I'm most hopeful for is that the multitudes put aside the pettiness, the day-to-day pettiness that we have among these different crypto projects, which is a tall order, okay? Because there are a lot of loud voices who want to crap all over people that are doing something different than what they're doing, or things that they like something different than what they like. I think perhaps this, in a roundabout way, all of this government all of this anti-crypto stance may, ironically enough, be what's necessary to collectively unite people under, the enemy. It's just saying the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's like, well, if they're going to regulate crypto and that means Bitcoin and everything else, then perhaps people in the crypto space need to get over themselves and pull their heads out of their butts and focus on how to make it known that we're participants in this economy and this world as well, and we're going to vote for what we believe just as much as you're going to try to facilitate your agenda, you government jerks who don't have.
The scary part is they politicize the financial system. They used to be, and maybe this is naive, but they used to be separate deals. Now, if one party could crash markets to blame the other party, believe me, they will. They don't give a flying shit about the constituents. All they care about is power. And so that's where all this stuff gets really frustrating. Is it we operate in good faith. The majority of us do, right? Like, we understand that when we participate in these markets, we're taking risk, and some of it will pay off and some of it won't. What we don't plan for is one party of this country to try to use the financial system as a lever to gain power. I mean, this stuff is it's not supposed to happen that way. And so, what the point of that being is that you have to just be mindful that, again, whatever happens in these markets, these protocols operate agnostically, will continue to operate despite, whatever happens around regulation, markets and all this stuff. You just have to remember that is what we're doing here. We're trying to build a parallel system that people can opt into to protect their wealth against these actors who, quite frankly, have proven themselves to be, bad actors and not people the American people could trust. And so it is important. It is something that unfortunately we have to pay attention to, but that's where we are.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. And in summary, in summary, Gensler got raked over the coals yesterday. There was a big spectacle, lots of tersely worded statements back and forth. And, is anything going to change? I don't know. I don't think so in the short term, meaning I don't think Gensler's going to go. I don't think he went back to his office and be like, gosh, I had this all wrong. Maybe I need to, say sorry and
No,
start
what
to
he's
undo.
going to do is
Yeah.
he knew he was going to get his ass whooped. He took the beating, and he's going to continue on his warpath because that's who he's got an agenda, and
Yep.
and so, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm optimistic this shakes out positively in the end, but it's going to be a bumpy road.
We shall see. And last thing, the liquidity is coming. It's coming. So be prepared.
All right.
Hope you're on the right side.
Sounds good. We'll end it there. And as always, do your own research. None of this is financial advice. Do your own research. Introduce